right. So before we get too much further into writing another spec for maybe like another scenario, or maybe talking about testing other things, we should jump into one important assertion that is missing from the complete end-to-end test of any of these flows. So we want to make sure that we are testing the full extent of the edges up until the edges of this application. We don't test beyond this application. That would be what some people might call an integration test, where we test the integration between two systems. We don't want to do that, but what we do want to make sure that we're doing is we're testing right up until that boundary, right up until the edge of our system. And we are stopping just short of that in these tests. And it is right down here that we want to make one last assertion on the API request that gets made to the back end. So we don't care necessarily, or I shouldn't say we don't care, we're not going to test what the response is from the back end, because the response is going to be determined by the back end using whatever logic it knows about, and the front end does not care. The reason we don't care is because there is a contract that exists between these two systems. There is a very specific definition for what design by contract means. It's not quite to that extent, but loosely, we are designing by contract. The contract exists between the front end and the back end, and that contract is defined through the API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. The interface to that back end has been defined. We know what it is, and the contract can be tested in a sense from the front end's perspective by making an assertion on the payload that we send to the back end. Okay, and so I've added one additional assertion here that we're going to look at in Cypress in just a moment. But remember from the last video that we've added this intercept in a couple places to say, hey, look for this API call and make sure that you don't let it go through, that you stub the response, or that you mock the response. Those words are sometimes used interchangeably, but they're a little bit different. Make sure that you intercept that response. Don't let it go through, but instead provide this information to the UI. So we are intercepting the API call to the back end, and we are responding with these simple results, which we've looked at previously. And that's right here. We know that this payload does not really matter as long as it's in this shape that is required. It's got to have the 12 months of the year, and it's got to have some value in here, and it may be a number or it may be null, but it doesn't matter to the front end. The front end is going to receive this data, and it's going to display it however it's been built to display. What we do care about, what we do want to test, but which we aren't yet, is the exact payload that we're sending to the back end. And that is going to be different for every single scenario that we test. Where someone has lived, what their household composition is, when they've had marketplace coverage. All of these things will combine together in the UI, in our form, to ultimately end up as this final payload. And so here is how we're going to test this. We're going to do this right now during this video. It shouldn't take too long. We are going to, first of all, this is how it previously looked here. Psi.wait SLCP estimate. Just say like, hey, make sure that this API call gets made at the very end, and it will, and it does. But we want to also make an assertion, so we're using method chaining, and say that it's its request body, whenever we make a post request, it'll include a body of some sort. And that should deep equal, meaning at multiple levels of nesting, the following object. And so I've just put in that the name should be Bob. Well, we know that's going to fail, but that's part of test-driven development, right? We start with a failing test, and then we write production code that passes the tests. So here we are. This test has now run, and we're at the very end, and we can see that the assertion has failed. The timeout, it timed out. We're trying after 4 seconds, and it expected the object that did go through in the body of the request to deeply equal name : Bob, which it didn't. Okay. There is some information missing here. If I want to know, maybe there's a very subtle difference. What is that very subtle difference? So what I can do here is I can actually click on this assertion. I'll click again. It says printed output to the console. So we're going to hit F12 on a Windows machine, and we are going to open this up and check it out. We can get some really good information here about what the command was. It was an assertion that was made, what the actual object was, which we can look at in a second, and what the expected object was, name equals Bob, or name is Bob, and more information about the message, the error, who knows what this warning is. We don't have to worry about that. We don't want to get rid of info. Let's get rid of warnings for a second. And so what was that actual object that we sent through? Well, here it is. Household confirmation true, household count 1, members, here are the primary members, their coverage, the date of birth, the primary member, what were they a primary member, their name, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things are in here as, because it captures that request that's made and what the body is of that request. And then it compares that to the thing that we passed in. So what do we have to do to get this test to pass? Well, we have to build up this entire object. Now, it may be tempting to just kind of like copy and paste. You can't really do that because this isn't pure JavaScript. This is like a console output. But probably what we want to do is kind of build this up in our test case, maybe even as a separate part of the test case, to just say, here is the final object that we're going to be sending through. And I think as part of doing that, we may help ourselves to maybe abstract some things here, maybe generalize some things. And so let's start building out this test case scenario. In TypeScript, in JavaScript, variable declarations are scoped to the block where they are initialized. So if we wanted to build up this end form value, it wouldn't be a good idea to do it here, because then we wouldn't be able to access this form value somewhere else. So let's just say for the time being, let's do it one level up. See these functions here, these methods, the before each and it, they're kind of, in a sense, peers to each other. So we really need to declare this thing at a level up. And we're not really going to go through the process of pulling files out into separate modules in this video. We'll do that down the road, but just for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to start off and we're going to say const final form value, and this is going to be a household form value type. You can see that my code editor automatically brings that in. So as we start to walk through this form value, I'm going to get things like auto completion. GitHub Copilot is going to help a lot with building some of this stuff. So first of all, household count is 1. We know that to be true. We might even want to just pull this out. And by the way, I just have this directly typed to the estimate payload because that's pretty much what it is. So as we're building this out, it may help to have this exported type open so we can kind of see what we're building. So the household confirmation or the household count is there. Household confirmation needs to be true. The tax year is 2022. The state is ME, and then the members are something, right? What are the household members? Well, we're going to build that up right now. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is, this might be a little bit of premature optimization, but you know, sometimes we kind of have all of the steps in our head and we jump a little bit early. I know that this members array is really going to be the rest of the entire form. And simply as a way to split this out, I am going to say, let's make this another variable called household members. This does not exist yet. We'll say const household members equals an array of something. It's telling me that is not spelled correctly. So let's make sure that it is. And right now it's yelling because TypeScript knows that this needs to be an array of household members. And so let's just make sure household member, that we type that appropriately and import this type. So we'll add that. Okay. And so now as we start to build this household member, here we go. We'll include that. I can even go one step further and I can say const John, or household member 1, which is going to be a household member, is something. And then up here, I can just put household member 1. All right. And now I hope you can see the pattern that we're kind of establishing. You don't have to do this right away, but it's just maybe a step that you can jump to pretty quickly is, hey, now I know that this object does not need to change. If I need to change John's name, I just find household member 1 and I put them in. All right, so now let's actually go to the household member definition. Primary member, this is going to be true. The relationship is going to be self. The name is going to be John. The date of birth, the DOB, is going to need to be month, day, year, 1979. That's great. Thanks, GitHub Copilot. Residences, oh, this is another one where we've got kind of an array of things. Come back to that just in a moment. And then the coverage is actually a record type of month Boolean. So it actually needs to be like Jan, true, Feb, true, March, true, April, true, May, true, June, great. We'll just keep going like this. I'm hitting tab to kind of fill that in. Whoops, September, true, October, true. Notice that coverage is not going to be a valid object until all of the months are recognized. So November, true, December, true. Oh, and that's it. Haha, cool. Those are the 12 months of the year. Great. So we've got coverage. Right now, this is interesting to me. Residences is an empty array. And I'm thinking to myself, that should not be valid. There has to be at least one residence. And I'm not gonna do that during the video here, but I think there is going to be something that I need to tweak about our form values or something like that, where there has to be at least something in there. It can't be an empty array. I'm not sure how to do that yet, and it's not going to block me from completing this video. All right, here we go. So we've got household member number 1, and something is wrong about that because, oh, look, block scoped variable, household member number 1, used before its declaration. I know you saw that, and I know you were thinking, wait a minute. Is it a good idea to try to reference the household members variable before it's been initialized? Well, no. So let's move this up. Let's move that up there. And same thing here. Let's move this up. So now we should be pretty good, with the exception of the residences, which we're going to put something in here. So the residence is, let's see, whoops, county, which needs to be a marketplace county, which consists of this. And actually, I think our zip code is exactly that. So let's just do this. County, zip code, months is missing. Oh, yes. Okay, cool. So all that's saying is, hey, I see that you've put something in here. Months also needs to be filled in. And by the way, it is the same shape as this. So we're going to put in January true. Now, I think we can close all of this stuff. And let's just see on first pass if this entire final form value, we're going to shove this all the way down here. So instead of deep equal Bob, we're going to put this in as the final form value. And let's see what happens. All right, so we're going to stop this. Let's refresh. So we're going through, put everything in. All right. So it is failing. That's okay. Remember, we want to write a failing test and then write the production code to fix it. I think in this case, it's probably just a matter of making sure that the form value that we're asserting on actually reflects the form that we're building. So let's click in here. Let's open up our console. And let's see. So the actual thing that we asserted on was here. Household confirmation true, household count is 1, state is ME, tax year is 22. Okay, great. The top level properties are the same. Good to go. All right, let's next check the members array. There's just one in both. Great. So let's dig in a little bit. I'm just going to bump the font size down, maybe 2. Yeah, that's still pretty good. So let's check the top level of that, of this member property. So we've got coverage. Oh, here we go. I put in the coverage as all true, but it looks like the coverage is all false. All right, so basically when I did that copy paste, these should all be false for coverage. False. So let's do that. Let's come back over here. And there we go. It actually asserted that that object was correct. And now what we have is we have a test that is truly end-to-end. It is truly end-to-end of the system that we're testing, from opening up the URL, going to the root path, going all the way through the form, and asserting on this final value that that is truly what is being sent to the back end. Okay, I think we have like 2 more minutes that I can add to this. What can we do now that we have this awesome kind of form value that's all set up? Well, if this is our base object to draw everything else from, maybe there's an opportunity to use the values in here as the source of our hard-coded values in here. So, for example, we're not going to do anything here to change the this because the value should be 1. But what about here where we put in that the name of the member should be John? Well, what I can do instead here is I can say household member 1 dot name, right? Household member 1 dot name. There we go. And now John is in there. And now what we've done is we've abstracted this detail away from the implementation. Now, instead of hard coding a name and requiring that to be the same across all uses of that name, now it lives somewhere else and I don't have to worry about that. Okay, same thing with here. Let's change it to backticks, template string literal here. Tell us about household member name, household member 1 dot name. How about the month inputs? Well, yes, we can. household member.dob.month. And we'll kind of repeat that pattern. This would be the day, and this would be the year. Awesome. The zip code should be, what is the zip code going to be? Well, household member 1, we want to start there, dot residences. We're going to grab, yeah, thanks GitHub Copilot. That's exactly it. We're going to grab the first residence, get the county property, and then grab the zip code. Cool. And then what should the value be down here? We should probably think about whether we want to hard code that or whether we want to draw it from the initial form object. I have some opinions about that. Let's leave it as is for now. And just make sure that as we go back down through here, we've got another reference to John. We've got household member.name. Okay, and I think that's it. I think those are probably all of the places that we can abstract those details away. And now we're leaning very heavily on our initial data to populate the form. We can go probably a little bit further with this, but for now, just wanted to talk about how the last step of this is to mock that API call or to intercept that API call, not only not let it go through to the actual API, but make sure that the request body is as we expect it to be.